The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual guests. If you're a sensitive snowflake that may get easily offended, then turn this off immediately. If you want to hear the real truth about the gun culture, then stick around. This is the Armed Citizen Podcast. What is going on, my Go Squad? Welcome to a special edition of the Armed Citizen Podcast live. This is episode number 130. I know that it's a weird time and a weird day, but we've got some guests coming in today that we fit them to their schedule. They're doing some stuff right now that we wanted to make sure we got them to. We didn't want to miss out on this opportunity because there's some people here and some organizations that you guys need to know about, and we want to get their information out and their story out as much as possible. So we did it right now. So we hope that you're watching live. If you're not able to get off work, but you're watching this in replay or listening in podcast form, welcome to the show. Welcome to the special edition of the Armed Citizen Podcast. So today we've got, like I said, we've got some individuals that are amazing veterans, and there's some heroes. There's some organizations that we're going to be talking about. And what we're going to do first is we're going to say hello to our first guest, which is Travis. And Travis is working with an organization called Halo for Freedom. And these guys work with veterans that are transitioning, that might be injured or have other ailments that they're trying to transition back into normalcy and help them as much as they can. But I'm not going to be here describing it. I want to welcome Travis. What's going on, Travis?
Trey, what's going on, brother? Good to be here.
Yeah, man, you guys are doing some amazing work. I know you guys are having an event basically all this week. So for the viewers out there, what I want to do is let you kind of talk about what Halo for Freedom is, and then kind of talk about maybe what you guys are doing this week.
You got it. So this week we're in our 8th annual Weekend to Remember. So we are the Halo for Freedom Warrior Foundation. And so what we do is we specialize in giving wounded and disabled veterans that confidence and that voice back. Because so often we see our amputees and guys that have lost arms and legs and have other injuries. It kind of puts them into a funk. They go into a depression, or they feel like they're less of a man or less of a human, less of a father. They feel like they've lost that confidence that they had when they were active duty. And so we put them through a few days of just absolutely balls to the wall, fun in the sun, right? So we, over the years, we've done NASCAR. We let them drive a track at Texas Motor Speedway. We jump out of planes in the middle of the NASCAR Speedway and land in the grass. This year we had to switch it up a little bit because of the weather, but we went to iFly, did some indoor wind tunnel action. Yesterday was the range day, right? So we went out, and they get to shoot everything that you can't get in the civilian market. We shoot full automatic M250 cal, 240 Bravo, 249 Saw, MG42, you name it. If it has a trigger and it pulls and goes boom at the end, we've got it, right? We have everything suppressed, and it's just an amazing time. They get to go helicopter hog hunting. They get to go helicopter target shooting. We've got some demo guys out from our local EOD squadron. We got to blow a bunch of stuff up, and it's just a really, really good time. And the whole point of all of that is to put in, the only way I can describe it is it's a accelerated brotherhood program, right? So these guys come in, and most of these guys have never met each other. They don't know each other. And over the course of 3 or 4 days, they leave best friends, right? Phones full of new numbers, new Facebooks and Instagrams and all the socials. And this is a lasting friendship of a group of guys that get it. And so the whole point is to give them that support channel, to give them the ability to have a bad day and call a brother that gets it. You know, I am lucky and blessed to say that I came out of my time in the service with all my fingers and toes, right? So when I start running into a guy that got blown up, hit an IED, something like that, and has lost his leg and he has a prosthetic, well, I can't help him out near as much as someone who's gone through that already and has already experienced that and is on the other end of that. But what I can do is pull out my phone and into any number of guys, dozens of guys that I've come across with and called friends and brothers over the years that are in that position, and I can pass that information along, and it gives them some support. And that's just the whole point of it, is to let these guys know that they are still important. They do still have a voice, and most importantly, that they have a support channel. And we are blessed to say that we're in our 8th annual we're in our 8th annual year of the Weekend to Remember. It's always in March. And so the foundation brings all these guys in. We fly them in from all around the nation, put them up in the hotel, and we just let them get after it. And we just kind of stand back and watch. And it's just really cool to see. So.
Yeah, it's awesome, and you guys were started by Dana Bowman, and Dana, you guys might remember, if you guys are old enough out there watching or listening, and back was it in like 94, 95? I remember the story.
94. Yep.
Yeah, he was a Golden Knight, which if you guys know anything about the Golden Knights, it's like the elite parachuters of the Army, and he had a mid-air collision with another person, which unfortunately that individual perished immediately. But Dana was basically, his legs were basically sliced off in midair because they compacted. I heard a story. I don't know if it's true or not, but like over 300 miles an hour combined speed.
So they were at terminal velocity. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's just, I know Dana can't make it. He had to step away, but do you want to maybe give a little background on Dana? Because I think people would like to know where all this started from as well.
Sure. So Dana Bowman was, like you said, he was in the Golden Knights in the Army, which is the elite parachute team, and they were doing a routine jump in Yuma, Arizona, over the Rose Bowl, and him and his jumping partner had a midair collision in one of the maneuvers that they were doing, and so it killed his partner instantly. And like you said, it did shear off both of Dana's legs, one above the knee and one below the knee. And then when Dana woke up in the hospital later, he had lost both of his legs, and he had lost his jumping partner. But Dana is not the kind of guy that stays down. Dana does not accept defeat. It's just not in his vocabulary. And so he pushed. He actually left the hospital before he was released in a wheelchair and went to the funeral of his buddy because he said he was just not going to miss it. And so then what he did is he actually got fitted with these prosthetics, and he became the first ever soldier to resume active duty status as a double amputee. It had never been done before. Usually you lose that, you were done. That was the end of your service time. And that just wasn't good enough for Dana. So not only did he become the first soldier to ever resume active duty status, he became the first soldier to become an active duty Golden Knight. So he went and did another 1,000 or some odd jumps with the Golden Knights over the years as a double amputee. He doesn't quit. It's not in his vocabulary.
I was talking with Shane yesterday on the phone, and he was saying something about, and I don't know if this is Dana's thing or if it's a halo for freedom, but I heard like 50 jumps in 50 states in 50 days. Is that real?
That's for real, dude. So it starts the end of this month, 23rd, 24th, somewhere in there. So Dana's doing 50 jumps, 50 states in 50 days. Never been done before. And if he can do it, which I don't see why not, because he's never been defeated at anything in his life, it'll be for a Guinness World Record. Like I said, it's literally never been done before. So Dana maintains. He's a motivational speaker, and he jumps all across the world. He's got the world's only Trump parachute. It's kind of cool.
Awesome.
So he's got tons of people that he jumps for, and he jumps into PGA and golf tours and events, and he jumps into the military ball at Annapolis every year. The man's insane. He's got 5,000 plus jumps, and I think over half of them are without his legs.
Yeah.
And so what he decided years ago is that if he was missing the brotherhood and the camaraderie, then so was everybody else. And so this actually started as a hog hunt, and just got a bunch of the guys together, and they came over and they went hunting and killed some hogs and had a great time. And he saw there was a little something to that. And so over the years, it has snowballed into the foundation that it is. And so now we get to bring just the highest caliber of people from all around the world. And I'm actually super excited to jump off and let these guys get their story told and get their voice out there, because what Dana and I tell these guys all the time is that it's not about us. It's not. We just get to be the lucky guys that are kind of at the helm and pulling the strings. But what's important is bringing these people together. And so we've had multiple Medal of Honor recipients. We've had Distinguished Serving Cross, Distinguished Flying Cross. We've had astronauts. We've had retired generals and colonels and single amputees and double amputees. We've had, people burned over 80% of their body. We've got guys of every branch, of every caliber, and these guys are all just the most amazing human beings that you've ever come across in your life. And so, Trey, if it's good with you, I'm going to jump off because I'm going to go link up with Dana and finish getting set up for our gala that we're having tonight. But I'm going to pass the mic over to just some really good guys. So I'm getting some mixed signals here. Hal, you want to defer? All right. So I've got two gentlemen that are in the pipeline. So I've got Colonel Fritz retired, so he's a Medal of Honor recipient. And then I've also got my good buddy coming on, and that's Cleve McClary. And both of these men, all these guys have amazing stories. And so you're going to get to hear from about a half dozen or so vets. It looks like we've got in here today from all the branches, from all the walks, and they're all going to get their voice out there. So Trey, I really appreciate you having me on and supporting Halo, dude.
Absolutely.
Just sit back and just enjoy these stories, man, because they're going to blow your mind, brother.
Thank you so much, Travis.
Cleve,
how you doing?
How you doing? So,
Cleve McClary from Paulins Island, South Carolina.
I can barely hear. What were you saying now?
You might can't understand me. I'm from South Carolina.
South Carolina. All right.
Cleve McClary.
Miss McClary, for people out there and myself, I would love to hear your story and then what Halo for Freedom has meant to you as well. So if you could maybe kind of give your background and kind of what you're doing with Halo for Freedom.
Well, I just met him many times, and Dana's a great friend. Not only is he setting a world record jumping 50 states in 50 days, I work with Congressman Tom Rice, and he's helping us. We're going to use it to raise money to buy a van to get wounded warriors and veterans that can't afford to get to the VA hospitals and all, or get to be a van with his jump at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina on 5 April, and we're looking forward to that. He does so much for so many. I've never seen anybody work any harder. My story, I was a college coach with Paul Dietzel. I saw a guy burn a flag at a ball game. We finally won one. And I walked on and joined the Marine Corps 3 days later. Had a recon team in Nam, and they wanted me to share that last hilltop experience. Went in with an area that very few men had been. Instead of going with 6-man team, I had 11 go with me. We were surrounded by the enemy. Had 2 dead and 11 wounded out of 13. But Lord's been good to me. But describing that hill, I cleared a punchy pit, got a bomb of that, had my radio man McCormick dig a foxhole to my left, 3 men in a foxhole to my right. About 30, 40 yards behind me, a bomb crater there, about 2,000 pounds. A bomb crater, I put 8 of my men around the edges of that. About 12 o'clock at night, I thought I heard some enemy movement. I grabbed my shotgun, crawled out of the punchy pit, started making my way to the right to see if my men had heard anything. Before I got there, a grenade came in and exploded. Hit me in the neck and the shoulder, and like any other brave lieutenant, I jumped back in the hole I'd crawled out of. And enemy came up with a satchel charge. I shot him right in front of me. He fell in the hole with me, exploded, blew the two of us out of the punchy pit. Going through there, I reached back for a shotgun. I realized my left arm had off. And tried to get to my right where I had 2 men fighting. I crawled over there to them. Another grenade came in, and Ralph Johnson, Burke High School, Charleston, South Carolina, jumped on a grenade, covered it with his stomach, blew himself in half to save my life and life of the Marine with him, and tried to get back where I had 8 men behind me, and running back to the bomb crater, another grenade hit me in the legs. It seemed like hours. I don't know how long it passed, but believe me, I know where to live so bad all my life. If I could just see my men get off that hill alive, if I could see my wife one more time. Ralph Johnson that jumped on the grenade, his family got a Congressional Medal of Honor. 50 years ago, we named a VA hospital in Charleston after him. About 10 years later, the street in Charleston after him. 2 years ago, the Commandant came down and 6,500 people, and we named a $4 billion destroyer, Ralph H. Johnson, that's stationed out in Seattle now, and I appreciate that. But one of my men from Texas, Fort Worth, Bob Lucas, got on the chopper and got on radio, called for help. The pilot said he couldn't get into daylight. Bob said, tell him forget it. We've been throwing rocks down the side of the hill, out of grenades. Nobody be here at daylight. Pilots reconsidered. 3 a.m. the first bird landed. Took me 2 dead, 5 wounded on that chopper as they lifted. About 150 enemy just covered the hill. 5 more minutes. Nobody. We got off that hill alive. Flew us to Marble Mountain, had surgery there, from there to Japan, from there to Bethesda, Maryland, and started walking a little bit and went home on leave. And so well, one of my heroes was going to be out at the football field one night. Bobby Richardson, former second baseman, New York Yankees, and Miss
Bobby
America.
From, yeah.
Miss America, Vonda K. Van Dyke from Arizona. And I told my wife, I said, I'd sure like to go see Bobby Richardson. And any Marine likes to see Miss America. I said, let's go.
That's
We
right.
went out to see Bobby and Vonda, and Billy Zioli, President Ford's chaplain from Muskegon, Michigan, brought a message that God used to change my life, and it changed my life for eternity. I accepted the Lord. I've been sharing that ever since. In the mesh unit, my men that could walk came by one at a time just to get a last look, and they thought I was going to die. And they lay a plaque down by me, and on that plaque it said, in this world of give and take, there are not enough people willing to give what it takes. I'm telling you, Dana Bowman and his crew with Halo, they give what it takes for this country, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Well, sir, I'm a Marine. I was much after your time. I was in the 90s, but Semper Fidelis, and thank you for all that you guys did. You guys, I mean, when we talk about heroes, people don't necessarily understand unless you've been in the shit in the fog of war and everything else. Looking back on stuff like that, when someone makes that mental decision to put themselves aside and make sure that their men and their brothers are safe, that doesn't happen very often. And I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've done. I'm certainly glad that you made it out alive. I'm sorry for the Marines under your command that didn't make it through that, but they'll always be remembered as long as you remember them and tell their stories to everybody else. So that's phenomenal. Now, I know that you said that was it Johnson received a Congressional Medal of Honor. When that process goes through, obviously you're being his CO at the time. What's that like, having to relive those stories to give your testimony to Congress and all? Is it hard to do that?
It's been tough. Sometimes my wife with me, I'll go blank because you try to put that hill out of your mind for a while, and sometimes I'll just really go blank. Matter of fact, I did it just a little while ago because it's hard to relive it. But I'm glad I lived through it, and the Lord lets me share it. And if I can encourage other people to give out but don't give up, that's what it's all about.
Now, were you issued a Medal of Honor with that as well, or just Johnson?
No, I got all kind of medals: medal arm, medal eye, medal teeth. But they gave me the Bronze Star and the Silver Star with different battles and 3 Purple Hearts. I got wounded 3 different times. I could have come home and turned it down. I ain't too smart.
Well, most of us are. A lot of people make fun of how dumb Marines are, but we like to hold that close to our hearts, but we'll always fool them, right, sir?
USMC, U.S. Marine for Christ. Thank you, man. I appreciate you taking time with me.
Tell us, brother. Appreciate you, sir.
God bless you. I'm going to go rest. Thank you.
All right, Trey, we got Medal of Honor recipient Colonel Fritz on next.
Colonel Fritz.
Hello, how you doing?
Good afternoon, sir. How are you doing, Colonel?
Oh, just fine. Just call me Hal. In the Medal of Honor Society, we don't have any ranks. Each of the recipients call themselves by the first name and their brothers by the first name. So please refer to me as Hal.
Yes, sir. I want to say this. I've never personally been talked to a Medal of Honor recipient. So this kind of comes cool and special for me and all the people that are watching live and listening later on and watching later on. Very few probably have ever been around or talked to or been able to ask questions to a Medal of Honor winner. And I don't know if you want to, I don't know if how much you want to get into it, but if you're willing or able to, I would love to maybe hear the story of what took place for you to get the Medal of Honor, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'll share that with you. It's a set of unusual circumstances. And when you hear the others that are with me today or are here today, you'll find that valor knows no bounds. And in my case, it was just a matter of being recognized by my fellow troopers for what I did in saving lives. The other veterans that are here, the other heroes that are here, the other warriors that are here did something equally as valorous, but they were just not recommended for the Medal of Honor. That doesn't mean that their valor was any less than mine. It's just that they were not recognized as I was representing my particular troopers on that battle and trying to save lives. And it was an amazing sight to see the troopers pull together. And as I told them, and I recently talked with several of them, it wasn't just me, it was us that made the difference. And I think you'll find that true of any of the warriors here. Together, the team made the difference. And you'll hear it from warriors that lost limbs, warriors that lost friends, or warriors that, in fact, would do it again if they could bring back their fallen brothers. And in my case, we were with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment, which was commanded at that time by Colonel George S. Patton, the son of World War II Patton. And I was assigned to one of the recon troops, Alpha Troop 1st Squadron, 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. We were in the 3 Corps area of Vietnam, specifically just north on Highway 13, which is a north-south main supply route from Lai Khe, actually from Long Binh, Bien Hoa, right on up to the An Lac Quan Loy area. And it was an MSR that we were adjacent to with a cavalry troop that consisted of 3 recon platoons of 8 vehicles apiece. And we also were reinforced with a tank platoon from our sister squadron. And that particular day, we were to escort a convoy of trucks that would contain 5,000 gallons of jet fuel, gasoline, diesel fuel, ammunition, supplies that were being delivered to the American forces that were based in the areas north of us. The mission that we had was to have one of the platoons of 8 vehicles intermixed with the convoy south and actually in Lai Khe, which was down about 30 kilometers, as escorts, and another platoon was to go north to clear the road from where we were up through Quan Loy An Lac area, because it was a dirt or laterite road, to ensure that the road was safe for the convoy to continue on. Once that section of the road was cleared, that particular element of that platoon was to log or to get into a position to act as a reserve force in case the convoy and escort were ambushed by the North Vietnamese. At the time, I was the executive officer of Alpha Troop. We had a platoon leader for that platoon had been wounded, and his platoon sergeant had been wounded. So they were without their platoon leader, platoon sergeant. We had a new CO that had only been there 2 weeks, a captain, and he was not familiar with the arrangement of the missions that we had. I was more familiar with those, so I elected to take the platoon north. I said, I'll run that mission, and we'll get that taken care of and get the supply convoy up through the MSR, and everything will be good to go. And he said, okay. I was short people, so I had 3 of the men that were due to get on a helicopter and fly south to DeRose out of Vietnam that volunteered to go with me. So we got the 8 vehicles, and we started up the road, no possible problem. We got up to our destination, refueled, we're coming back down the road, and as we did, I told the convoy to initiate their forward movement. We were clear, and as we moved down the road to our position that I was going to select, I was looking at a position that I thought we might be able to catch a VC or an NBA soldier that had occasionally taken some pot shots at their convoys going up there, but he never hit anything. So we assumed, now this is January, I assumed that perhaps it was a VC or an NBA that got an AK-47 for Christmas and he was trying to zero it in. He was doing a good job. So my plan was to capture the little guy and see if we could get intelligence on the elements that were to that side in the Cambodia or down Highway 13, because that was adjacent to the Ho Chi Minh Trail, which was one of the North Vietnamese main supply routes of supplies. So as we came back, and after we had alerted the convoy to move forward, the position I chose to move into as we slowed down was a position that a North Vietnamese reinforced company had moved into to ambush the truck convoy. As we slowed down, the North Vietnamese commander had no choice but to initiate the ambush as we were in a kill zone, because if we would have moved off the road, we would have compromised their position. So we therefore became the target of the ambush. And when we first got hit, they took the 2 command vehicles out with the dual antennas, and I was in the second vehicle, or the lead vehicle at that point. And it blew me off the vehicle, and I initially thought I'd hit a mine. So after I got up and pulled myself back into the vehicle, and I saw that my vehicle had been hit with a recoilless rifle fire and RPG fire and was being raked with machine gun fire. Both my gunners were killed. My 2 side gunners were killed, and I saw the convoy was caught in a fuselage of fire. Now, the uniqueness of this ambush was on one flank, which was about The road itself was maybe about 30 feet across, but on the right side of the road, there was a depression that the North Vietnamese ambushers were in. They were shooting up at us. Across the road was level, and the NVA ambushers were shooting at us. So we were in effective crossfire, and they, in fact, were not hitting their own soldiers. So it took, most of our vehicles were hit, not fire. So we had 28 troopers, and we had the vehicles, we had 7 vehicles. So I said 28, 7 vehicles, 28 troopers. Most of them had been hit and were on fire. So we were on the ground most of the time. The radios were out. I had no radio contact. We tried to get a call in, patching a radio together to stop the convoy. And with that, we lost radio contact. So then it was a matter of fighting on the ground. Even though we were cavalry unit, pretty much as infantrymen, between our vehicles and the enemy force on both sides were within just a few meters of our position on both sides, all along the kill zone, firing up with RPGs and AK-47 fire. And in some cases, they were coming into our area, and we were actually fighting out of our particular area of vehicle location on the road and driving them back out. And it became a kind of a tenuous situation because we were trying to save the wounded, because there were about 5 of us out of 28 that were not seriously wounded enough that we could fight. So most of the force was down. So that's what we're trying to work the entire length of the convoy. You figure you got 28 troopers and 5 vehicles, and they're on fire. And so that's quite a stretch with the APCs running back and forth. So we had to fight for our life on our hands. The troopers did an excellent job. I mean, every one of them. The medic, he was a 19-year-old medic. That was his first firefight. And he told me later that he was taking care of one of the wounded troopers, and he looked up and saw 2 North Vietnamese soldiers coming out of the trench down on one side of us with fixed bayonets, and they were so close to him, he thought it was going to be the end. And he told me, he said, sir, he said, I'm not a religious person. And I said, okay, that's man's choice. And he said, but at that particular point, I was guarding my patient, and I knew that my time was up. They were going to get me. I just closed my eyes for a moment, and I said, good Lord, here I come. And he heard a burst of fire, and one of the fellow troopers had shot the 2 NVA, killed them, and saved the medic. So as we're going through this, we had no radio contact. We knew the convoy was probably en route to us. Our ammunition was running down. We wanted to, 1, stop the convoy, and 2, I couldn't E&E the men out, escape and evasion, because we were surrounded. So it was a matter of trying to fight off what we had. And I told the sergeant, I said, we'll keep them back as long as we can. When they come over the top of us, you're going to have to make a choice. And I handed him 2 grenades, and he said he knew what I was talking about. You're either going to take the grenades and pull the pin, or you're going to be a POW. And about that time, I looked to my south, and I saw through the smoke and the fire the guide down of a cavalry vehicle, and it was a tank platoon of 5 M48s that had gotten our message and were coming down the road to give us some assistance. Now, at this point, we're still fighting the North Vietnamese. It's the dry season, so everybody's covered in that red dust, and our vehicles were also. There's smoke and there's fire and there's tracers going every direction, and the tank stopped about 150 meters south of us. And I couldn't figure out why the tank stopped. So I said to the sergeant, we got to get those tanks. Now, we don't have any radio. So the only thing we do is somebody's got to go down there and tell that first tank, we're up here, move in. And of course, when you look at who's in charge, that was me. So I started going down the road, running my skinny 138-pound body down that road as fast as I could. And I said, Jesus, they shoot me. Well, one less person. I could have only 4 to protect everybody. But I started getting close to the first tank, and he turned his main gun right on me. When you're looking at the business end of a 90-millimeter main gun tank cannon, it looks about as big as a wastebasket. And all of a sudden, he fired and blew me into the bushes. What I didn't know was there was an RPG team that had aimed the RPG at the lead tank. The tank commander had only one choice: eliminate that RPG position before the RPG hit him. I was between him and the RPG team. Fortunately, the blast blew me into the bushes. I got screwed up a little bit, blew my ears bad. But then I come crawling out. I got up to the lead tank and got a hold of the tank commander. And I said, okay, left flank, right flank, here's where you need to go. bad guys are in the middle of us. They're on the side of us. They're on both flanks. You move in both sides, we have a good chance of suppressing them pretty good. So that was 5 tanks they moved in. And with the arrival of those 5 tanks, I got back down to the actual position that I was in prior to running down 150 meters, 150 yards. I was able to be with the men, and we got the tanks in place. That started to turn the tide of the battle. Unfortunately, we lost by 2 gunners. But as we brought the tanks in, we started taking less fire because they were concentrating their fire now on the tanks that were moving on both sides, 3 on one side, 2 on the other. And that kind of subdued them a bit. I mean, they were still going after us, but just prior to that, before we got the tanks, there was one assault that they made at us at the end. We drove them back I took a group of 3 people with me, and I said, we got to drive them back one more time. So we just grabbed what we could. In my case, I had a 45 and a bayonet, and one guy had a rifle, and another guy had a shovel, and away we went. And I guess they weren't expecting that. They figured they were gonna beat the crap out of us and kill everybody and move back into Cambodia. But that was such a out of the box solution that it caused them some concern. They didn't know how to handle it, and they backed up. So I got back into the position, and that's when we saw the tanks. So that's when I went down there. And after we got the tanks in there, then we started bringing the medevac ships in, and I noticed one medevac ship landed with the red crosses on it, and I could see underneath the tailboat of the medevac ship there was an RPG tape that was going to RPG the medevac ship. And so I looked up at one of my vehicle commanders, and he had a machine gun, and I pointed to that position, and he looked at it and knew exactly what I wanted. And he let a burst of machine gun fire go, and he killed the 2 men that were in the RPG position. It was fired, went over the helicopter, didn't hit the helicopter, and it popped in the back of us. So we were able to prevent the medevac ship from being shot. And we started evacuating our people. And as we were doing that, I found out we had the ditch, and got into the ditch with one of my NCOs. Because now we had the tanks down there, so we were going to reinforce. And I was trying to clear this ditch area, and I was facing one way, and he was facing the other way. And I had my trusty 45 that never let me down. And all of a sudden, through the brush of this ditch, came this great big guy. I mean, he was as big as me, and he had a belt buckle that had a star on it, a communist star, and it looked like he was Chinese. And I said, "Bet I got him." I got that 45, and he was only a few feet from me, and I had a perfect sight picture of his chest. I pulled that trigger, and when that firearm hammer fell down, it sounded like somebody hitting a church bell, because it had rechambered on an empty chamber. And he's right there. And I said, I looked down at his AK-47 that he had with the fixed bayonet, and I saw the front of a round sticking out of his chamber area, which meant he had a jam. And the next few seconds went pretty fast, and the troop said I grabbed his AK-47 from him and bayoneted him and killed him. I don't remember a lot of that, but we did it. That's what they said. They saw me do it, and we took both those weapons after the firefight back to our temporary fire support base, and found that after firing multiple, we fired 3 or 4 full magazines through the AK-47, no stoppage. We ran the same amount through my 45, no stoppage, and it recycled perfectly.
Just happens to be that specific time both weapons had malfunctioned. That's crazy.
That's correct. And I just don't understand why that happened, but it did. And during that particular firefight, my troopers, I'll tell you, and the other warriors there tell you the same thing. The battles they were in, because you're so close and you're watching everybody's flank, and it's your responsibility. You try to get your brothers back. You want them to be effective on the battlefield, but you also want them to survive. They'll tell you the same thing. You're so close to those people. Nobody's going to let you down, and you can't let anybody else down, regardless of how badly you're wounded or whatever you're thinking. And anybody that says they were never scared in combat, they're full of BS, because that's not a good situation at all. But if you're in a leadership position, you can't let it show, because they look to you for the leadership, and you're the person, whether it's an officer or a non-commissioned officer, you're the one they're looking to for the answers. And in this case, we were able to get through that, and the convoy was stopped, and we were able to prevent the enemy from hitting that, because their plan after we got the we started interrogating the 70. Well, we actually, it was a reinforced company, so it was about 175 North Vietnamese, and they were regulars. I mean, they had uniforms and they had good equipment. There was none of this junk that you saw that's effective, but non-specific weapons that the VC had. Farmers by day, fighters by night. These were North Vietnamese regulars. Their plan was to come in, ambush convoy, blow up the 5,000-gallon tankers, kill all the Americans, and move back into Cambodia. It was a morale thing for this particular NBA company. And it didn't work out quite that way for them, luckily for us. And so I'm here to say that I was proud to be fighting with those men. Proud that we pulled together, and that's what happens when you're in these organizations in combat. It doesn't matter whether you're a cavalry troop, or you're an airborne unit, or you're an alert unit, or you're special forces. That's what makes the difference. It's the teamwork that's going to get the people out, and you don't leave anybody behind. Now, I told my troops, I'll promise you this: if you're with me, I'll bring you back, no matter what. If you're wounded, I'll get you out. If you're killed, I'll bring you back. But I'll bring you off that battlefield. I will not leave you there. And I never did. So that's what it was. Teamwork that made the difference. And then I found out a couple of years later, I was notified that I was recommended for and approved for the Medal of Honor, Army Medal of Honor. And then my guys had to do this, of course, the statements. And I was really surprised because I didn't deserve the medal. I wear the medal as a messenger, and it belongs to all those men that served and showed that courage. And the men that are here, the men that were there with me, that's their medal. It's not my medal. I'm just a messenger, and my mission is to go out wearing that medal, as is the mission of every other Medal of Honor recipient, to show people as we go out and talk that this represents the valor, this represents the sacrifice, this represents the courage and the dedication of every man and woman that has served or now is serving in the United States Armed Forces. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Absolutely. I've got some comments out from out here in the audience, and basically to a T, they're all want me to tell you that thank you for your service and thank you for all that you've done. But one of the questions is coming through that have been asked is, being a Medal of Honor, you probably get a lot of opportunities to do public speaking engagements. And is it ever hard to relive these memories and talk about it? Or do you utilize this as, like you said, as a memory of your brothers?
Well, it's a two-sided sword, a two-bladed sword. You can't help but, and I've got a painting, print in my home that's print of that battle that they did to show conflict and combat in Vietnam. And when I had them do that, George Patton called me, and they were going to use the sale of those prints for the families, the sons and daughters of the troopers that were killed in Vietnam. But when they did it, he wanted to show the intensity of combat in Vietnam for the 11th Cav. So I told the artist, I said, let's take it one step further. In this particular painting of this battle, I don't want any vehicle numbers out there, and I only want the black horse patch of two people. The lead scout and BPL would be in front and on my shoulder, but the rest of them, no patches. That could be a mechanized infantry unit, that could be a Marine unit, that could be a cavalry unit, just to show the intensity of conflict. And when you think about that, when I think about it often, I pass that every day, and I think about the troopers that I lost. But I think about the importance of telling the American people as we go out, the importance of what you're asking young men and women to do when you commit them to combat. I mean, let's take a look at our Congress today. They don't have a dog in the fight. Most of them have not served or don't have family members that have served. So it's easy to say, well, let's deploy 50,000 here, 40,000 there. That's America's sons and daughters. No, it's not, you're not talking about pocket change, for God's sake. So we try to get the message out so that people understand the importance of supporting our military, recognizing our veterans in terms of recognition on the street and recognition through a VA and hospital facility for what they've done. And any of these troopers that you talk to that have lost limbs or suffered damage that you can't see from the outside, but PTSD, will tell you the same thing. They do it again because
Every day. Absolutely.
People that are in there.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time talking to me, and I think you'll have some very, very interesting stories from the troopers that you're going to hear.
Absolutely.
I call everybody a trooper, whether they're what service they're in. So I don't mean to degrade the Marines or the Navy or the Air Force, but
No, sir.
everybody is a trooper.
Colonel Fritz, I just want to say before you leave, like I said, it's an absolute honor to be able to talk to you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you have done and are continuing to do for veterans and especially disabled veterans. That God bless you, sir.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Okay, we've got Mr. Wayne Munt, Army medic. And I'll tell you what, the medics draw more fire on the battlefield than anybody because that's what the enemy's looking for.
That's right. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you, Hal.
Okay.
Hi, this is Wayne.
Hi, Wayne. I'm Trey. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm a Marine. So we have in the Marine Corps, we have Navy corpsmen, which are our medics pretty much. And I will say this, if being a medic, you'll probably understand this, but for the Marine Corps, Navy corpsmen are held to as high esteem as you could possibly be because medics, corpsmen, they are the lifeblood of anything. So thank you for your service, and I would love to hear your story. I'm sure the audience would love to hear your story as well, sir.
Thank you. Well, my name is Wayne Munt. I live in Spearfish, South Dakota, and I saw Dana jump into the rodeo up on 4th of July up in Belfouche, South Dakota, and got to talking with him. And he invited a number of people that were in that group to come down and be part of this Halo organization for the weekend. I went to Vietnam a long time ago, 1970. I was drafted as a 26-year-old, had recently gotten out of college. I was too old for the draft. My number was 212, so my number was too high. I wasn't going to get drafted. I was married and I had a child. And so I called my draft board in Grand Island, Nebraska, and told them all those things, how old I was, how smart I was, I got college and all of that. And I said, you can't draft me. And the lady said, watch. And then she hung up the phone. So I had a one-word response when I told them I was ineligible. So anyway, I was drafted, went to Fort Lewis, Washington. Then I went on to medic school down at Fort Sam. And then out of Fort Sam, I had a 3-week leave. And then I went directly to Vietnam. I was assigned initially to the 1st to 14th of the 4th Infantry Division in the Central Highlands. I got in country on September 9th. Deployed to the field about 6 or 7 days later. It was an uneventful first couple of days, and then we were in and out of different firefights. On the 8th of October, I was wounded on a hill, and just happened to be in a fighting position with another medic, so he was patching me up. And so that was my intro to Vietnam. I hadn't been there yet a month, and had a chunk of shrapnel in my shoulder about as big as my thumb that I pulled out myself. And it was still so hot that it burned my finger on my thumb and my finger on my left hand because I reached over to pull it out. Anyway, I stayed in the field. We were going to go in a couple of days. And then we had a number of things go on in the 4th Division, and it was getting toward what they said the end of the war. So the 4th Division was standing down. I was sent up north, the 101st Airborne, and that's where I did a little more than 9 months, and I was with them. The most eventful times were during the month of March 1971. I was involved in quite a number of situations that required a medic. On March the 3rd, we had lost some medics, and so I was on a fire base called KGO, and was the reaction medic there, which simply meant that if a company was out or a platoon or squad was out, come into contact and didn't have a medic with them and they needed help, the colonel had a Loach, the little light observation helicopter, at his disposal. And so I became his backseat to that. We would fly into the area, figure out where the smoke was, and then land far enough away that I could get out and make my way up to where the battle had been taking place, and then aid those guys that needed some help. And so I got a Army Commendation Medal on, I think it was the 3rd of March. On the 8th of March, we were on a place called Firebase KGO, basically set out to guard the KGO bridge, which led into the rock pile, Ashaw Valley, Quezon, that sort of thing, up north in I-Corps. And on the 8th, there was a convoy ambush just below us. And so we had road access to our fire base, and the colonel's Jeep was there. So I jumped in the back of his Jeep with another medic. We went down to where the bridge was, and the convoy was, there were some burning vehicles, and a couple tipped over it was a real high mountain coming down one side, and then it was flat on the road, then dropped down to the river, and then a high mountain on the other side. And so we were on the river side below a couple of bends, and it was ARVNs, which were the Army of the Republic of Vietnam. And there were some ARVN troops with us on our fire base, and they knew that there were some people that were hurt. Well, none of the ARVNs would go up and bring their own guys back. So another medic, his name was Donald Lawson. We called him Peaches because he had peach fuzz for whiskers. So he was a little guy from San Antonio, Texas, and he was my good luck charm because I never got killed. Anyway, so we progressed up the right side of the convoy. There was some outfits tipped over that were loaded with ammunition, and I'd patched up a couple ARVN guys. There was a culvert there, and I drug a couple of them in there, stabilized them, left them in the culvert, kept on, moved ahead. There was a flatbed truck that had munitions on it, and we were by the back wheels of on the trailer, and it was the front part of the truck, but the Vietnamese guys that I'd patched up said there was a GI, beaucoup hurt, beaucoup bad, very bad. And so we went ahead and we were by the back wheels of that semi, and I told Peaches, I said, stay here, I'm going up to the front, see if there's anybody in the cab, because there was a door open on the cab. And as I sprinted as well as I could, I had a 16 in my right hand and my aid bag in my left hand. And as I approached the door, as low as I could get, I heard an RPG coming in from the right. And so I hit the ground, pulled my pot down on my face. That RPG round hit about somewhere between 4 and 6 feet in front of me, right on the edge of the road. And it blew sand and gravel and other crap on me. It blew a hole in the tire right next to my face, blew that stinky old bad air out of that tire. And it hit the saddle tank of diesel fuel and it didn't explode. And I had diesel fuel all over me. So I turned back to Peaches and I said, let's get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. So we went around to the other side, thinking that all the bad guys were down on the west or the east side of that road. Well, it turned out there was a bunch of them on the upper hill on the other side. So we're kind of in a ditch in a low spot there, but they'd taken some pot shots at us. Luckily, they weren't very good shots. And we heard a truck coming back downhill because we were going uphill. And we thought it might be the lead truck of the convoy coming back. And so we're hunkered down by some rocks there and looked up, and it was a deuce and a half coming back down the hill. And I said to Peaches, I said, jump, grab the mirror and jump on the running board. There's not room for two of us. I'll catch the net on the back because I could see a cargo net on there. Right. And so Peaches jumped on the door. I jumped on the back, grabbed a hold of that net. I climbed up as good as I could. I had my aid bag slung over my shoulder, hanging on with my left hand onto the net and my 16 in my right hand. And about that time, the little people up on the hill opened up on us with AK fire, so on. Luckily, they were piss poor shots. But it was like a John Wayne movie. I'm hanging on the back of that net with my feet in it, one hand on it, shooting, and then go down and then try to reload. And it was like a monkey playing with a football. And got back down to the bottom, just nothing, just little dirt scrapes and stuff on me. And the CO at that time, a man by the name of Colonel Hamilton, awarded me a Bronze Star with a V device on that deal. That was on the 8th. On the 11th of March, 3 days later, we had incoming every day thereafter. On the 11th of March, it was a busy time.
Holy shit.
On the 11th of March, which is my alive day, we got some incoming, and of course the word medic it spreads fast. Bailed out of the. I didn't have a shirt on, but I threw my flak jacket on and I threw my pod on, grabbed my 8 bag and my 16, and I went around the bunker clockwise from bunker. It was like bunker 14. There were 16 bunkers on the thing, and just to check, make sure on the way around. And a couple of the other medics had gone up toward the helipad. We had just had some helicopters come in, and that's what they were trying to hit. Well, as I made my way around, somewhere around bunker 6, when I was getting toward the helipad, a 122 rocket, I think it was what it was, maybe a big mortar round, hit behind me. And I had my flak jacket on, and it had a couple of great big holes in my flak. It knocked me flat on my ass, just drilled me. And I realized I wasn't dead, so I did a front roll, gathered myself up, and continued on. I did get some wounds in my left arm and shoulder, but I knew it wasn't enough to immobilize me. So I went on, got over by bunker 9, and that's where the first rounds had come right into that area. And 2 of the medics that had come up the other way had both been wounded, were drug into there, and the place was filling up, and there were some guys over toward the helipad that were down. And so that's when I had to go to work. So I headed over toward the helipad, and I got a couple guys that had been wounded pretty good, and I drug them back to the bunker, and then ended up going back. Sorry.
So
anyway, and then I went back, and I got 2 other guys that were dead. I brought the one back. I tried to bring him around, but it wasn't going to work. And I went back to get the other guy, and he was blown up pretty good. And so then we got another huge barrage of rocket and mortar fire in. And as I was bringing him in, I laid on top of him so he didn't get hurt anymore. Anyway, it brings out some emotion. Anyway, got him back up and laid him right next to the bunker with the other guy, and patched up some other guys, went into the bunker and patched a bunch of those guys up. And then we had a medevac come in, and we had to cut through our own wire. We had concertina wire around there. We had to cut through our own wire to get out to the helipad, make it shorter. And we wired a bunch of guys out. They didn't have enough room to take the dead out, so we took them up and had them right by the helipad. They had to come back in and get those guys. I got wounded somewhere between bunker 6 and 7. Then I got wounded again by bunker 9. Some more shrapnel, and I never left. I was the only medic up there left that didn't get hurt, and so I stayed and never left the field. So I was wounded 3 times over there. I never left the field. It was just shrapnel, so it was a big deal. And ended up, I got the Silver Star for that, and along with the Purple Heart. So in a month's time, I ended up with actually. In a month's time, I was wounded 3 times, got the Silver Star and 2 Bronze Stars in a month's time. So the joke around the aid station there was that Audie Murphy was back.
right.
It was.
It's
emotions, but sometimes it just when it comes back to the surface.
no, sir. You don't have to explain yourself or feel. I mean. Anybody, and I just want to. I can't imagine the hell that you guys go through. And I have a couple questions from out in the chat and the audience that are maybe one to ask if you don't mind. And one of them is from a gentleman who's a good friend of mine. His grandfather was a Marine at Guadalcanal in World War II. And so he's heard stories from his grandpa growing up. But from a medic's point of view, during the Vietnam era, how severe of an injury would it take for them to send them to a hospital and take them out of the fight? I'm assuming if it was patchable and they could still walk, they were still in the fight. Is that correct, or what would it take?
If the fight right then was hot,
kept them there. What I did as a medic, I was on the side of the crutch because I was one of them. Anything that happened, I got them out of there. I said, the hell with it. You can get infection out here. You can do all kinds of crap. I want you out of here. If somebody had something in their eye, I called for a medevac. We had a guy get stung right between his eyes by some big jungle bee, and I sent him out. I sent guys out that had punching stakes in their feet or their legs because that stuff can get infected. You don't want them in the field. I sent them out as much as I could. I wanted them out and away because that's one other thing I didn't have to do. We had other guys that were fully capable. But we had, as a medic, we were really well respected. But when the shit hit the fan, that's when a lot of medics got a lot of medals over the years, and probably a disproportionate number of medals when you look at the whole spectrum. But when the shit hit the fan, that's when my job started, and so it was,
Well, I can tell you my experience in all of what we feel about our medics and the Marines and the Navy corpsmen. The difference with you guys is you serve two purposes. You're there to take care of us, but you're also in the fight. I mean, it's not like, you're not supposed to be shot at, but that doesn't really always happen. You're probably going to get shot at more than anyone. So you have to be a soldier and a medic. And that's something that I can't even imagine the stress that goes on a daily basis with you guys, knowing that you've got to protect yourself. But more importantly, your job is to help protect everybody else. And I don't know how you guys do it. It's amazing.
Well, it was a brotherhood, and it
still is. That's why I'm here today. I'm going to leave you now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to have one of my good friends, Tyler Williamson, come up here. He's a ranger. He's a helicopter pilot. He's a medic. He's the universal soldier.
He's the real deal. Thank you, sir.
How's it going, brother?
I'm great. How you doing, Tyler?
All living the dream, man. Talk about living in the shadows of giants.
Nightmares are still dreams, right?
Yeah. Talk about
humility and humbleness, living in the shadows of these guys that came before us.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's amazing. It's amazing.
Let's see, pre-9/11, I was in the military prior to 9/11. Fight for enlisted, stay and do everything. But man, my brothers of our generation, Iraq and Afghanistan, we deserve to give our Vietnam veterans so much more credit than they were ever given. I mean, when we came home, we were treated amazing, and we were treated amazing mainly by these guys that are 60, 70 years old that were completely shit on when they came home. And our hearts go out to those guys. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I was in the Marine Corps in the 90s, and I remember hearing stories from people that were coming back from the Vietnam era, and they were just treated absolutely just like trash a lot of time. And so, yeah, it's crazy. But, so you kind of did a lot of things. You were a ranger, a pilot, a medic. Can you kind of give everybody kind of your background of all the shit that you went through?
Well, kind of my story. I'm third generation military, third generation paratrooper. I joined the Army in 2000, wanted airborne school, wanted Fort Bragg. I was the recruiter's dream. Signed up, enlisted for not $1 of bonus, took off, went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and fell in love with it. Loved that camaraderie. Served as a machine gunner, javelin gunner, combat lifesaver, basic trauma life support guy, and then eventually worked my way into HHC Scouts. As a scout sniper, went to Ranger School, 19 years old, made it through Ranger School.
That people realize that's a feat in all in itself right there. So
I was pretty proud. Got through Ranger School, started training back at the 2nd Brigade of the 82nd Airborne, and 9/11 happened. I happened to be on rear D that day because I broke my foot on a jump and was on staff duty and watched the towers fall. And literally just felt my heart shake. And, we're Eastern time zone, a couple hours ahead of where I'm from, Western South Dakota. Called my dad and just said, it's going to happen. He was a Vietnam vet, so we kind of knew what was going on. We knew we had a heads up.
Well, you knew it was getting ready to happen at least.
Yeah. And later on, our unit was assigned to a JSOC element that was going to be stationed out of Saudi Arabia to prepare for the airborne invasion of Baghdad International Airport for the opening shots of the war. Push came to shove, sandstorms came in, our jump didn't happen. I was assigned as a heavy scout sniper carrying the Barrett 50 cal and the primary spotter for my light guy carrying the M24. We were reattached back to, I believe it was 3rd Infantry Division, and our first major battle was in the Battle of the Samwa in southern Iraq. It was one of the many cities that 3rd ID bypassed their lightning run to Baghdad. And the Battle of Samwa occurred between the 30th of March and 4th of April. Our initiation was at 0245 Zulu, which was 545 local. Bridges crossing the Tigris River, Euphrates River, and were initiated on by our KPV technical, firing directly across the bridge at us, and started the game. Soldiers were running everywhere, trying to take cover behind reed fences like it was going to stop something. There were green footballs flying through it as that 88 gun was shooting at them. One of the NCOs in the lead platoon took out the technical with M72 Law from our Vietnam vintage stockpiles that we raided prior to the invasion. My scout team, sniper team, took up position in an overwatch over the bridges and started engaging targets of opportunity. I was in position with height advantage, was able to see beyond the little sand and concrete walls that surround every hut in Iraq. And as Iraqi Fedayeen and Army soldiers were trying to flee because there was a massive amount of firepower being thrown on them by a bunch of 18-year-olds from the 82nd, I engaged 3 guys that looked like a PKC machine gun team that were running out the back of the building. And the firefight went on for a while and kind of died down, came back up, and they kind of rejuvenated and started firing mortars at us. We were taking mortar fire, and Staff Sergeant Sean Rowe was down on the bridge, and all of a sudden he just started yelling up on the top, Will, zip line. And it's like, what the hell are they talking about? All of a sudden there was a steel cable that got pulled up out of the river and was anchored to our side of the road on the bridge abutments and went to the 3rd or 4th story window building across the street. We didn't know what was going on, but we figured it probably wasn't a good idea. If they were going to send satchel charge or explosives down on the bridge or whatever. And only because of the rounds that I had been firing throughout this engagement, I mean, I completely confirmed zero. And cable come pulling up out of the river, and it was Hollywood movie time. And I let one shot go and severed the cable in the middle of the road in front of 250 guys. It was pretty awesome.
How about that, huh?
Awesome. Got called out on that at my wedding by some of my other Army buddies to the ones that were there. But then we kept advancing farther north and ended up providing counter IED and mortar support with sniper teams, along Route Irish. That was the time when the Iraqis really started getting good at making things blow up on the side of the road. And it was kind of vindication going out there at night and watching these guys dig in holes and thinking they were getting away with something, and then just hearing your spotter say, send it, and let one fly and put another guy down that's trying to take out one of your brothers. And I did that first full year of OIF-1, redeployed, and was voluntold that I was going to take over a team in the 18th Airborne Corps Long Range Reconnaissance, which is Fox Company 51st Infantry, the elite bastards, some of the best guys I've ever served with. Conducted 2 tours in Iraq, conducting counter weapons and Syrian influence incursion missions along the Syrian border, and placing sensors and taking 3 to 6 man reconnaissance teams out for 4 to 8 days at a time while we were watching them. Got detailed a mission along the Euphrates River, overlooking the Syrian border, where they suspected large amounts of surface-to-air missiles and rockets being smuggled. Been notified in the past that other special operations forces had been out there attempting overwatch on it, and one such team was engaged in a serious firefight and had to be extracted. We attempted to go back in about a month later. Thought we found the perfect site up in these cliffs, and since it was rocky, we couldn't dig in. And everything looks a little different in the daytime than it does at night. Well, when the sun started coming up, I started seeing green Army tent stakes pounded into the rocks right where we were at. I'm looking around, and there's all kinds of 5.56 brass and 7.62 brass. We'd literally picked the best spot available, which happened to be the exact same surveillance site that the previous team had been compromised in, and the insurgents knew where it was at. So it kind of wasn't a real good feeling. That night, we were laying on the cliffs up there doing our overwatch, approximately 2.5 kilometers away from the target. My senior scout shook my shoulder because I could hear, and he heard talking. Looked up on the cliff line above us, and silhouetted 25 yards away were 3 Iraqis with AK-47s walking parallel to the ridge. And they walked down the exact same goat trail that we came down. Mm-hmm. And standing between us and them was a rock about the size of a pool table. I was laying back behind the rock with a 249 saw and 2 Claymore clackers and getting ready to let this happen. And by a stroke of God, they walked within 3 feet of us, turned and continued walking down the trail, never saw us. Nothing happened, just total luck. That next morning, I was able to confirm the presence of what we were looking for and conducted a GMLRS HIMARS missile attack from Key West, Saudi Arabia, Key West, and took out the area. During those 2 tours of Iraq, as a recon team, I believe we were hit 36 times with IEDs, 7 vehicles that were completely destroyed. And our sole purpose out there was trying to gather the intel to intercept these weapons that they were bringing in. And on that 3rd tour, I was notified that I was selected to go to flight school. So I redeployed early and went and got the great fortune to learn how to fly Kiowa Warrior helicopter, and redeployed to Iraq for a 4th tour and conducted scout weapons operations and route security for the U.S. forces and partner forces as we were getting ready to leave. And that's kind of about it. It's just been amazing being out here with this group of people this week, though.
Yeah, thank you so much for your service and all that you did. I got a question for you though. So I was with a unit called First RIG, Surveillance Reconnaissance Intelligence Group, over in Camp Pendleton, and so we probably shared some of the same stuff. But what I want, being a recon guy who's embedded into the environment for a week, 10 days, and hopefully you're not noticed because you're doing a job, versus a helo pilot, 2 completely different stresses because everyone knows you're in the air, they can see you. What was more? 2 questions. What was more dangerous and what was more stressful?
I would say the stress was higher on the surveillance missions. In the western desert of Iraq, there's not a lot of bushes to hide behind.
Right.
So we had to go completely subsurface, dig a hole, put 3 to 6 guys, depending on how many teams we had out, completely subsurface and start watching. And we had Bedouins and shepherds walk within feet of us, looking through a vision port the size of a can. But with the technology that we had today, it was pretty amazing. We were able to take digital video, live action video, stream it over secure internet, and have the ninjas come in at night and start knocking on doors and just giving them seamless information. And, and as the scout pilot thing, that was kind of the completion of everything I did. I started out as a ground scout, and nothing makes an 11 Bravo happier than seeing Kiowa Warriors overhead. And I just thought it was awesome to be a Ranger qualified 11 Bravo that was now flying scouts above my brothers below. But I was in a unique position in all but the first part of my military career when I was an infantryman was actually a door kicker. But the entire rest of it, I was always in an overwatch, intelligence, surveillance, protection thing. And Nothing crushes me more when somebody would get hit with an IED or any of that. And it just puts that burden on you as an intelligence, asset that you guys didn't quite get it done, and somebody's might not be here because of it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the average person doesn't understand the layers of a unit structure, and you've got to have the door kickers, and you've got to have the overwatch, and then you've got to have the overwatch, which is in the air, and when I was in, we didn't have internet, we didn't have digital cameras, we didn't have drones, we didn't have all of the stuff. And so it's interesting that the mechanics and the SOPs don't change. Technology changes, but guys with boots in the sand, it's still what it is. So it's amazing. What you have done is incredible because you literally went the whole gamut of the experience. And thank you so much for your stories, and thank you for everything you did. When you're over there and you come back, and obviously you're with working with Halo for Heroes, and you see guys and gals that are coming back that have been through some traumatic experiences, lost limbs or whatever, when you get to work with some of these people and get a chance to talk to some of the young ones just coming home, what's the one thing that you try to tell them? You always want to tell them everything's going to be okay, but what's the one kind of message that you try to give everyone that's coming back that's still struggling?
I'm still struggling. We're going to struggle for a long time. The thing
Right.
is, they need to know, and we all need to realize, is that every one of us has got a demon of some sort inside. Some of it's from the loss they had, some of it's survivor's remorse, some of it's that. But I think the biggest thing is they just got to be able to find somebody they're comfortable with and be able to talk about it. And the biggest thing I see in the veteran community, I'm a prime example of it. Type A males don't ask for help.
That's right.
They don't want help offered to them, and they don't respect help that's offered to them unless it's somebody they can relate to or somebody that has seen it. And us as a group of veterans need to realize that we are the key to cutting that 22 suicides down. And it's through being able to relate and talk to them. I lost 13 of my friends and soldiers in direct combat, and I've lost over twice that from suicide since they came home. And it is the fact that we as a group are too proud to ask for help. And, and we all know you got problems. It's just hard doing it. And, events like this that Dana put on is absolutely amazing because you can see through everybody's bullshit. Soldiers can't bullshit soldiers because they all know somebody who knows somebody else, and you're going to figure it out, and these guys just kind of let that armor down and, man, have fun. Take these guys out and just have fun. Yeah, I've shot every gun in the world, but you know how good it was? It was pretty nice to get back up and let loose with the Ma Deuce again.
That's
and just
right.
get that rattle going and just check it, gets the blood flowing. So I really appreciate, what these guys have done and all these organizations. And I'd like to be followed up by one of my OEF brothers here, Specialist Juan. Oh, Eric, I can't say it, buddy. Great.
Hey, thanks, Tyler. I appreciate you, bro.
Thanks, man.
What's up, Juan? How you doing?
Hey, how you doing, sir? There's U.S. Army retired Sergeant Juan Arredondo, and I got hurt back in 28th of February 2005, and served about 7 years and 3 months in the military. And I just kind of wanted to just say how appreciative I'm Halo for Freedom and everything that Dana Bowman puts on, and just meeting all these veterans and being in the presence of my war heroes, because I didn't really play sports. I didn't really have football players or baseball players as heroes. I looked up to the Vietnam vet guys. Like I said earlier before, someone asked me, I'm a war veteran. Got me to join because in high school I had a tough story about a Vietnam vet, and finding a Vietnam veteran and his document his story, and after listening to his story, I was like, what I'm going to do.
15 years old, just joined the military. Being surrounded by heroes, it's just a pleasure and a great time. That's what if this organization wouldn't be, this wouldn't take place. So there's what going on.
Well, let me ask you this, and for people that are out there transitioning from active duty, and we all know that once again, alphas don't look for help, they don't seek help, whether they want to believe they need help or not. But you know, if we know someone out there who's transitioning from active into the civilian world that we think that might need some help and need some guidance, how easy is it for us to get them connected with organizations like Halo for Freedom?
It's pretty easy. A lot of times it's just a phone call. I mean, a buddy of mine got me involved with it back in the day, and there's several organizations that are great organizations out there. Whether it's fishing or kayaking, there's an organization doing it for veterans that are OIF, OEF, before. Also, worked a lot with the VFW, DAV, a lot of several organizations. I work for a particular organization in San Antonio where I visit, like I got visited back in the day, a bedside for warriors that were wounded in combat, and having that face to face and that one on one with warriors is probably one of the biggest things to have, because it's all trust. And if the warriors out there, because they trusted the guys out there on the battlefield, and if they don't trust you, they're not going to open up, and it's kind of hard to do that with someone that hasn't been there, or not only that, but someone that hasn't served. Won't understand the patriotism that these guys have, because we don't do it for anything but each other most of the time. That's what we fight for. Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And I tell people all the time, and you'll understand this, that people that haven't served truly don't get it, that when we take the oath, it's something you put yourself and you say, I'm doing for something bigger than just whatever, myself or whatever. But a lot of people don't understand, and it's frustrating because you hear people say how bad their lives are, but yet they have no idea on an everyday basis, how good they truly have it. They've never been overseas. They've never seen anything where a town that has, no plumbing, no food. They're being controlled by, tyrants, and we've got it pretty good here. So we need to make sure that the guys and gals that are protecting our freedoms and our way of life, when they come home, we don't have, and as a veteran, I'm sure, I feel the same way as you do. I'm not asking for anyone to ever thank me, to say anything to me. If they just completely don't even know, wonderful. But we always need to be on the lookout for someone who's struggling. And if you see someone who's struggling, even if you don't know them, sometimes a simple hi, how are you, how is your day, can mean the world to someone who feels like they're alone. So I think it's amazing that organizations like Halo for Freedom and other ones out there are trying to bring our brothers and sisters home and bring them back into civilian world and give them a chance to succeed, because God knows they deserve it.
Yes, sir. No, I agree 100% with you. And there's no other, you took the words out of my mouth. That's definitely what we need to be doing, because you never know when someone's, the inner wounds are big time. I mean, I have external wounds. I lost my arm. I got my legs messed up pretty good, and people can tell. There'll be veterans all around me, but they'll come up to me and be like, "Hey, thanks for your service." And sometimes I'll be like, "No, well, my buddy here, he served too,
Right.
and he served as well." And because like Mr. Tyler said earlier, that I lost more friends. I mean, probably double what I lost over there here, because they didn't come out, and being part of an organization that helps guys on the ground, I see a lot that I wouldn't say don't need it, but maybe are sometimes entitled and they think they need it. But the guys that won't ask for the help are the first guys that will lose, because they, like you said, they won't come up directly. My brother's the first sergeant. He's in Iraq right now. He called me right after he got hit, because he knew we're watching his family while he's here, and
luckily no one got injured in that first, those blasts in Iraq, but there's still people out in harm's way. And working the hospital, like I work at BAMC specifically, so I get to see the guys bedside when they come off. A lot of special groups out there still doing work and putting in work every day, and people don't know, and we get calls that, hey, we got a guy in the hospital, with could be anything, burns. BAMC was specifically burn issues, but it could be anything, and it's just guys that are still serving. And sometimes you're out in public and like nobody knows that there's still war going on.
Well, I love the fact, and you have no idea the immense amount of respect that I have for you guys. But you've lost a limb, and yet you continue on every day as part of your life's mission to help other people. When you very easily could just sit back and say, you deserve to be entitled, Tawan. You do. You've given literally a limb for your country, but yet you don't do that. And the massive respect that I have for people that have lost limbs and yet their only mission to help other people is tremendous. Thank you for being a true American hero. It's amazing. Thank you so much for that.
No, I appreciate it, sir. And like I said, I met Dana back in 2005 in the hospital, and I was just he had an amazing story, and I saw what he was doing coming around, and I kind of you sometimes I had to be carried off the battlefield, and now I feel like I want to carry people not only off the battlefield but continue further process and transition. So definitely I appreciate what Dana does here and all the people that put in for this organization, the donors, the sponsors, the other warriors that he brings around here, because we're all mentoring each other and just bouncing things off each other, because there might be an organization in Montana or South Dakota that I don't know about that could help one of my fellow brothers out there. And I just met a guy from Montana that I got the chance to visit, Leroy Petrie, Medal of Honor recipient, in the hospital when he lost his arm, and then met one of his fellow Rangers at this organization's event. And I wouldn't have done that. That wouldn't have happened if I never. And then we just started telling stories about Leroy, and it was just funny because it's just a great experience, because and that camaraderie, like you said, exchanging phone numbers, emails, keeping in touch, continuing that service is something that a lot of us, a lot here are doing.
Well, it's a wonderful tribute to the American spirit, is when you, once again, and that's just part of it. You put yourself out of the way. You do things for a bigger picture, for something bigger than yourself. I think it's amazing that people, you talked about it earlier, injuries, physical injuries that you have and others can see, are not the ones that usually are bothering veterans. It's the hidden injuries. It's the traumatic brain injuries. It's PTSD that no one can physically see, that people don't realize that this happens daily. And for some people, their lives are changed forever, and they almost feel alone. They feel like there's no one out there to do that. Explain to me, when you see someone young that are coming to an event like you guys are having this week, that might have been one of those people, I don't need help, I'm good. And then you see a transformation because for the first time they realize they're not alone and there is help. How is that? That's got to feel awesome for you.
It was an amazing feeling, and I felt a little bit of it today because I had a buddy of mine that was here, Sergeant David Camargo. I visited him in the hospital back in 2007. He lost his leg above the knee in Iraq after his second tour, and some of his men were killed. And this guy has not said, he won't say more than 15 words to me straight in a sentence. He's a very quiet guy. I mean, driving up from San Antonio to here, he didn't say much in the car. And then we get here, and then Dana Bowman asked him to give a speech to kids at a high school. And I never heard his story either. I haven't heard it. He didn't tell it to me initially. I never asked him because I felt like he'd tell it at the time when I when he felt like it, and I didn't push him to. And then, he said it in 1,600 high school kids, and I was very surprised. Had to take a picture, send it to his wife, and the boundary that breaks, because that's a big step for him. And I've known him since '07, and that was a huge accomplishment. 13 years. He doesn't get up and talk in front of crowds, and he's never talked in front of crowds. So it was a big. Just seeing that I was just like, wow. I had to document it, take a picture, send to his wife, because she didn't believe me that he got up at the podium, and it's just amazing, sir.
It's one of those that we joke all the time. As a Marine, we're gonna make fun of the Army dogs, the Navy squids, and the Air Force flyboys, and y'all are gonna call us jarheads and all that. But it is amazing that no one else is allowed to make fun of us. If you didn't serve, you better not make fun of anyone. And so there is a built-in security net. There is a built-in support system, and it's wonderful to know that it's taken. You guys are taking it above and beyond just a normal system, a support system, but you're there to change lives. And God bless you, Juan. Thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you, sir. And I'll put you guys on with that. And thank you for the opportunity, sir. And thank you for what you're doing, sir.
Thank you, sir. Got it.
Trey, that pretty much wraps up the veterans that we have coming in here for freedom.
I don't even know what to say at this point. I mean, that is, it's unbelievable. Thank you so much, Shane. I really appreciate it. And tell everyone that came in and everyone that was around from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. And that was kind of one of the most enjoyable days I've ever had. So that was incredible. Thank you.
Well, and I've talked to the guys with Halo, and one of the things that we're probably going to have to do is next year. We have this every year.
Mm-hmm.
We'd love to have you out as a Marine, come out, see firsthand, to get you more involved in what this process is. Hail for Freedom is an amazing organization that does so much outside the boundaries of what other, not to put any other organizations down, but they do so much outside of the box that other organizations don't touch because of the resources that they have. And, the biggest thing that these guys, they're so humble in what they do, after their days of service. And we know, you've come across them, I've come across them. Humbleness is sometimes the most amazing quality you can find in a person. And to come around these guys every year to see and hear their stories and watch them open up amongst the brotherhood that we have here is an amazing thing. And, the one thing I want to put out there is that there's always somebody, if there's somebody listening now, there's always somebody there to listen. All you got to do is make the call. Halo for Freedom's on their website, www.haloforfreedom.com. Go out there, or it actually might be .org, I think.
I'm putting the link in the chat right now. Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's always somebody at the other end of the line to be able to be a resource that's been downrange, that understands what they're going through. They just got to make the call. So I encourage anybody that is in that position to make that call.
Like I said, this is you and I were talking on the phone last night that most of these guys that win these medals, they do it because they were put in a shitty situation, and they were put into a position that they had no choice but to put their brothers and sisters ahead of them to help save them. So it's not uncommon. It's not hard to believe that these guys are humble, because you have to be a humble person and not an arrogant about you person to even do what they did. So I'm getting comments on the chat. This was an awesome podcast. This was an amazing podcast. It truly is. And we talk about people being heroes, but man, we met true American heroes, the guys and that you brought on today were, like I said, this was an honor for me. So thank you so much. And I tell you what, if you want me to come down there next year, you tell me when and where, and I will 100% be there. I would not miss that for the world.
You bet, Trey. We're just happy to have you. I appreciate everything you do for the veteran community, you being a veteran as well. And anytime you need us, we're here. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
You, bro. I appreciate you very much. And guys, thank you for watching live. If you're watching in replay or listening in podcast form and you have any questions or anything, use the comment section down below and we'll get any information. We'll ask questions. We'll probably have them on several more times and just bring in every time you guys have an event, man, you got an open channel that you can always come on and get your message out. So anytime they want to come on, you just let them know they've got an invite anytime they want. But thanks again to Shane for making this happen. And thanks to every single one of those heroes that came in and gave their story and talked to us. So God bless them all. God bless our veterans. We'll talk to you guys soon. Semper Fi.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.